Hi everyone. Now, the last time that I spoke to you, it was about representations, and in particular, it was to do with Rachel and gender roles in The Dark Knight. We discussed different stereotypes, and in particular, we discussed the stereotypes of women in society and how the representation of women in society and in films has changed. Now, I had asked you at the end of the last representations lesson to complete this task on Rachel. So I had asked you to think about the ideas about what makes Rachel a stereotypical damsel in distress or princess character, or how she sort of rails against or fails to fulfill that character type. I had asked you to think about the dominant ideologies of femininity, particularly with Rachel's appearance and her role in the film. You should have already written this answer. If you haven't yet, then you need to stop this video here and make sure that you have watched the previous videos and you've completed this task. Now, what I'm going to be getting you to do today is I'm going to be getting you to do a little bit of self-assessment on what you've written in response to Rachel's character and how Rachel is represented in The Dark Knight. So whatever you have written about Rachel, you will eventually, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to look at your answer and you will be able to self-assess and say with confidence whether you have included all of the sections that you need to when talking about the representation of a character. Now, the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to talk about another character. I'm going to talk about Lucius Fox today, and I'm going to talk about another couple of dominant ideologies that we see being presented in The Dark Knight. The first dominant ideology that I'm going to talk about today is ethnicity. So when it comes to ethnicity in The Dark Knight, we see this being portrayed through the mob. So the mob are foreign, they're Russian, they're Italian, and they're black, representing these ethnicities in a negative way. So the fact that all of these ethnicities are are part of this criminal mob represents them to us, the audience, in a very negative light. In the boat scene with the two boats, one is full of prisoners and one is full of innocent citizens, and one of the prisoners, who's a black character, takes the detonator from the officer in charge and throws it out of the window. So when he does this, he represents black people as being criminal. However, black people can also be represented in a different way in The Dark Knight, and this is through them being helpers to white people, and this is the way that we see Lucius Fox being represented. Coming away from ethnicity at the moment, another way that Lucius is represented in The Dark Knight is through his age. So age in general in The Dark Knight is, with the more elderly characters, they're represented as being wise, less dominant, and we see this through the characters of Alfred and Lucius. They're both shown to be very wise, very kindly, and they help Bruce Wayne. However, when it comes to actually being in charge, Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent are the two characters that are in the actual positions of power. They're the powerful characters. Even though Alfred and Lucius, you could argue that they're technically smarter, they're wiser, they're more worldly, they're more experienced, the younger characters of Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne are still the most powerful ones. More younger, youthful characters are represented as being easily manipulated. They're represented as being rebellious because at the start of the film we see the Joker hiring youths in order to help him rob a bank, and we assume that he's done this because the representation of youths is that they are easily swayed, they can be persuaded to do things, and they can be easily manipulated by people like the Joker. Children are also represented as victims, as being very innocent and pure in the film. So, for example, when Harvey Dent takes Gordon's family and he threatens to shoot his son in the head, his son a child is helpless and he's crying, sobbing, and it's a very distressing scene. The scene's there. I'm not going to show you the scene just now because we're not focusing on children today. I'm just talking about age in general. We're going to be talking more about age in terms of Lucius Fox, so we're going to be talking about elderly characters. Okay, so like I say, the reason that I'm going to be talking about Lucius Fox today is to give you an idea of the process of writing about the representation of a particular character, so that then you can take the way that the process of writing this paragraph about Lucius Fox and apply it to your paragraph on Rachel in order to self-assess it and make sure that you have included all of the different aspects of how Rachel has been represented, and say with confidence that you've included everything that you need to. So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to try and bring in ideas of racial stereotyping. I'm going to think about how Fox's character is a stereotypical helper, and I'm going to have a think about dominant ideologies of race, and for another paragraph I could perhaps think about dominant ideologies of old age. So there he is there, Lucius Fox, and I'm going to start my process of writing this paragraph in the same way as I asked you to start the process of writing your paragraph about Rachel. And I like to do this with a spider diagram. Some people prefer to do it with a list, that's fine, do it in whatever way that you want. So the first thing that I know about Lucius is that he is a sort of donor character or a helper character, and that's because he gives Batman gadgets, he gives him his suits, and he designs the cars and things like that. I also know that Lucius is a wise and older man. I also know that he's kindly, he's very soft spoken. So even in the blackmail scene, where he's talking to somebody who's saying, "No, I want $10 million every year for the rest of my life," he still speaks to that person in a very soft way. He never raises his voice, he never gets angry. He's just very measured all of the time. Very non-threatening because of that, because he always seems to have a little smile on his face. He's very soft-spoken. He comes across as being very kind and very non-threatening to the audience. In terms of his costume, he tends to wear a suit, so he tends to wear like a shirt, as you can see in this picture, a shirt with a suit jacket, which shows him to be very tidy, very presentable, and very professional as well. So we associate him with being a very professional character, which means that we put a lot of trust in him. We trust that he knows what he's talking about because of this costume that he has. However, when it comes to Lucius's suit, it's different to the suits that we see other characters wear, other characters that hold more power, for example. So characters like Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne, when they wear suits, they tend to wear long neckties. And these long neckties, along with the shirt and the suit jacket, those types of costumes, when worn by men, indicate a sense of power. They have connotations of power that these characters hold within their role in the film. But Lucius doesn't wear this long necktie with his suit. He tends to wear a short bow tie. And bow ties have very specific connotations. They have connotations of being sort of nerdy science guys wear bow ties. If you've ever seen Bill Nye the Science Guy, bow ties are definitely associated with him. He's this person who does he's an American guy who does lots of like science tutorials for kids on American television, and his very recognizable costume that he wears is a bow tie. So bow ties are always or usually associated with this sort of nerdy science geeky type of character. So because of that, bow ties don't hold the same sort of power that the long neckties with the suit jackets do. And that's why Lucius Fox is wearing this. It's to indicate that although he is a wiser, older man who is clearly very clever because of all of the gadgets and things that he makes, he still doesn't hold any power. He's also a sort of Uncle Remus type stereotype. So an Uncle Remus stereotype is a character who is an old black man who exists within a film or a story solely to assist a young white man with his mission or plight or whatever it is. And we see that here with Lucius. His character only exists to help Batman, the young, courageous, brave white man, in his plight throughout the film. There is no other point to Lucius Fox other than to be there to help Batman. So now that I've made my my plan about all of the different things that I know about Lucius Fox, and some of these are in relation to in relation to age, but mainly I'm picking out more things to do with race here. So I think that I'm ready to collate all of the information that I know about Lucius Fox and that I know about race within The Dark Knight and how race is represented through Lucius Fox and put that into my paragraph now. So I'm going to come out of here and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a reminder about what I need to include in my paragraph about representation. So I've already gone over this a couple of times, but there's no harm in going over it again. So within any paragraph that you write about representation, you must include the selection, portrayal, and the cultural assumptions. So remember, the selection is who or what is represented as what. The portrayal is how is that representation constructed. So that's probably your easiest bit because you're just picking on evidence from the film. So you'll be picking on like costume or body language or camera angles or whatever it is. And cultural assumptions, why has the filmmaker constructed this representation in this way? So this is where you're going to be talking about your dominant ideologies of race or your dominant ideologies of gender or your dominant ideologies of age or whatever your focus is on your paragraph. Okay, so I've put these in different colours. I'll tell you why in a little second. I'm going to show you the answer first of all that I wrote. If I just scroll down here, this is the answer that I wrote on Lucius Fox. So here I've started off by saying the character of Lucius Fox, don't know why I didn't put a capital there. The character of Lucius Fox is represented as a donor character who is dedicated to helping Batman in his mission throughout the film. He provides Batman with suits and gadgets, but also helpful advice at times, which portrays him as being an older, wise, and clever man. Now this is, let me just move this up a little bit actually. Now, if we're looking at this paragraph here, in relation to selection, portrayal, and cultural assumptions, this is clearly me describing who is represented as what, because I'm describing that Lucius Fox is represented as this particular type of character, a donor character. He is represented as dedicated to helping Batman with his suits. He provides helpful advice at times, and he's portrayed as being older, wiser and clever. And the reason that I've put each of these sections into different colours is because I want to colour code all of my paragraph to show which bit is the selection, which bit of my paragraph is the portrayal, and which bit of my paragraph is the cultural assumptions. So I'm going to highlight this bit as being red because I am confident that I have clearly indicated who I'm talking about and I have clearly indicated what they're being represented as well. They're being represented as an older, wiser and clever man. Then I go on to say, Lucius wears shirts and suit jackets throughout the film, which show he is a professional person. However, because Lucius wears a bow tie instead of a necktie, this portrays him as being non-threatening and holding no real power in terms of the events of the film. So you'll see here that if we go back to, if I just stop there, if we go back to my spider diagram there, I'm putting in the words from my spider diagram, I'm putting in the phrases non-threatening, I'm talking about he's professional, I've spoken about as well, okay, so no power as well. So you need to make sure that you're using your ideas from your spider diagram. That's why you do that first, to just brainstorm all of your ideas first so that you can put them in a logical way when you come to write your paragraph. So then I've said, this is because the people we associate with bow ties are usually nerdy science guy types. Again, that's from a spider diagram. This costume also indicates his wisdom due to the bow tie. There are also frequent close-ups of Lucius's face where he has a soft expression and a small, kind smile, which indicate he is a character we are supposed to trust and depend on, much like Batman does. So we're supposed to look upon Lucius as being trustworthy. We're supposed to look on him in the same way that Batman looks upon him. So that's how the representation is constructed. I'm giving examples from the film. I'm talking about cultural codes because I'm talking about his costume, and I'm talking about technical codes because I'm talking about close-ups, and again I'm talking about facial expressions when I'm talking about Lucius's face with his soft expression, so I'm talking about cultural codes again there. Okay, so I'm confident that I've talked about 2 different types of cultural codes, 1 type of technical code. I'm confident that I have clearly shown how the representation is constructed. So I am going to highlight that green. Now, the last bit is the cultural assumptions. So this is the why has the filmmaker constructed the representation in this way. And this is where we need to make sure that we are going back to the dominant ideologies that you know about from the film. So I'm going to be talking about in this part of my paragraph how Lucius Fox is represented as just being a helper to Batman, and why that has been done. So I say Lucius Fox is presented as the stereotypical Uncle Remus character. Again, you'll know that I've said that in my spider diagram. And then I say what that is. An older, kindly black man who exists in the story for the sole purpose of helping and assisting the young, charismatic white man in his plight. This stereotype is outdated in our society nowadays, where the dominant ideology for race is much more equal, and that no race should be forced into subservience for another. This representation could therefore be offensive to black audiences, as it reduces their role, to one of just a helper to white people. Okay, so there I've done a few things. So I've said, why has the filmmaker constructed the representation in this way? Well, I've said why it's been done, but then I've gone on to talk about how it's stereotypical, and I've gone on to talk about how the representation might affect particular audiences as well. So you need to make sure that you're thinking about audience reaction to it and to the representation, and you're thinking about the representation in terms of stereotypes and dominant ideologies. If you're thinking about the dominant ideology of race, is the way that a particular race is represented in the film, does that tie in with the way that we think about race within our society? So I'm confident that I have discussed the why, so I'm going to highlight that blue. So that's my paragraph there, and I've also put that paragraph into, if I can find it, there it is, I've put that into the PowerPoint as well. And those are the 3 sections of my paragraph there, with some pictures of Lucius with Batman there. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to pause the video here, and I would like you to have a look at your own paragraph that you've written about Rachel and about how Rachel has been represented in the film in relation to gender roles. And remember, we discussed what the dominant ideology was of gender roles, and the female gender, in the previous lesson. And I would like you to go through your paragraph, and I would like you to highlight in these colours, red, green and blue, each of the different sections of selection, portrayal and cultural assumptions that you can see that you've written about in your paragraph. So pause the video here and you can go on and you can do that. So now that you have completed your paragraph on representations of Rachel in The Dark Knight, and you have highlighted in your answer the selection, the portrayal and the cultural assumptions that you have discussed about Rachel, what I would like you to do is I would like you to send that paragraph either to your teacher by email, because I know that there are a couple of you who don't have class notebook working, but for those of you that do have class notebook working, I would like you to put that paragraph into your TDK folder in your class notebook, please, and your teacher will look at it and give you feedback on it. Now, with Lucius Fox, what we've looked at already is I have already written a paragraph and shown you about how racial stereotyping is used. So how Fox's character is a stereotypical helper, and how that is sort of linked to his race and the fact that Lucius Fox is black. So I've talked about the dominant ideologies of race. What I would like you to do now is I would like you to write a paragraph on the representation of Lucius Fox in relation to the dominant ideologies of old age. So we've already talked about race and how race is linked to the character of Lucius Fox and how that is stereotypical. But now I would like you to think about what are the dominant ideologies of old age and how is that represented in the character of Lucius Fox. So pause the video here and have a go at that. Once you have finished your paragraph on the dominant ideologies of old age in relation to the representation of Lucius Fox, I would then like you to think about the dominant ideologies of old age and how they apply to Alfred Pennyworth. So what would you be saying that might be similar to what you've already written about Lucius Fox, and what about Alfred Pennyworth in relation to the dominant ideologies of old age might be different? So I'm going to stop the video here, guys, and I would like you to have a go at this one with your paragraphs on Alfred Pennyworth and Lucius Fox. Once you have completed them and you're happy with them, in order to get feedback, please put this into your TDK folder and class notebook as well. Okay, thanks guys.